Oi boys, welcome back to another video on the channel, and wowee, what a grand final it was. The Melbourne Storm are once again the champions of the NRL. They put an end to the Panthers' 17-game winning streak, which is a great feat in itself, but I think if you ask any Panthers player, they wouldn't really care about that winning streak when it came to the game that mattered the most. Unfortunately, they fell short. I'm sure any player would trade that kind of win streak for a grand final premiership ring. And as for the match itself, it was entertaining for the most part. As expected, it was fairly scrappy due to the weather conditions. I will say this though, the way both teams were attacking was a bit of a surprise. Melbourne in particular, it was only a surprise because in the lead up, the experts were calling for a heavy raid on the Penrith left edge, and that wasn't the case. I'd have to watch the match again, but I'm pretty sure to start the game, the Storm were hammering away at the right edge of Melbourne, with their focal point being, I think, Tyrone May. I'd have to watch it again, but I'd be interested to see an actual ex-player's perspective or a coach's perspective. The first 5 minutes of the match, super scrappy, plenty of errors, and in the third minute, Justin Olam dove into the corner and the ball was dislodged due to a Tyrone May kick, and that ended up in a penalty try. Controversial to some, but I think it was a fair call. I mean, while we're here, the officiating in general I thought was pretty poor. As for who I thought got the rub of the green, like I said, man, I'd have to watch it again because when I was watching, I was more in the moment and just enjoying the footy being played, even though it was pretty quality wise, it was pretty terrible to start off with. But I would say that Melbourne got the rub of the green, definitely in the first half at least, but that second half was heavily in Penrith's favour, in my opinion at least. But mate, that's footy, isn't it? One moment you're getting all the calls going your way, and then the next you just can't catch a break. But yeah, anyway, after compounding penalties in the 22nd and 26th minute, the Fijian flyer Suliasi Vunivalu reels in a Nathan Cleary floater and runs for 80 meters. Man, a thing of beauty that try was. I was definitely riding Vunivalu home, as I did have him in one of my bets. Once again, after compounding errors and even a penalty, I'm pretty sure around three errors and a penalty, and around the 39-minute mark, the skipper, Cameron Smith, crosses the white line for his own meat pie, and they head into halftime, up by 22 points to 0. So overall in the first half, Penrith weren't as bad as the scoreboard indicated, and Melbourne just capitalizing off errors and penalties. Although they were down by 20 plus points, you always had that feeling in the back of your head that if there's any team that could come back from this kind of deficit, it would be this Penrith team. So around 5 minutes after the break, Pappenhausen makes a break midfield, and it's another long-range effort as he ran for around 60 meters to score the first point of the second half. That try was on the back of a Moses Leota, an error which they then challenged and failed. And yeah, on the back of that, they get the scrum. A cheeky little show and go from Pap to Nelson Asafa Solomona. Pap then ends up splitting Crichton and Cleary, and it was off to the races from there. 52 minutes in, what should have been a blatant no try. Brian To'o scores in the corner on the back of a little kick from Isaiah Yeo, which was definitely a shepherd. Probably the worst referee decision of the night, but that gave a little life to the Panthers. So around 66 minutes in, Cameron Smith gives away a penalty, and the touch finder from Cleary was shut down by a flying Ryan Pappenhausen. Man, he had a great game. Ended up picking up the Clive Churchill medal, so I thought it was definitely a good pick. It was either going to be him or Smith, but I thought it was well deserved for Pap. And I also thought that play in particular was one of the biggest moments in the match, but I digress. Anyway, back to the timeline here. At around 68 minutes in, on the back of a Brenko Lee error, Stephen Crichton ends up beating Brenko Lee in a one-on-one contest that should have been a tackle every day of the week for Brenko because they had the numbers. But yeah, it was a clean miss from Lee, which led to Crichton crossing and keeping that little flame of hope lit for Penrith fans. With 10 to go in the match, Jerome Hughes gets pinged for a professional foul. Penrith on the Storm line, they chucked in a grubber and Hughes cut off Viliami Kikau, and the refs deemed it a professional foul, which is a fair call. He did change his line. Hughes gets shown a yellow card and is told to go for early showers, as that was pretty much on the 70th minute. So not long after, the Panthers immediately take advantage of that overlap throw a cutout ball to, I think it was Luai to Mansour. He scores in the corner, and it gets super interesting from here. Well, at least in the moment, it felt interesting. Storm, they actually dug deep for most of the remainder of the match, if that makes sense. Right around the 79th minute, Brandon Smith holds on to a runner, like a blatant yellow card. He gets yellow carded with seconds remaining in the game. That was followed up by a hectic run by Nathan Cleary. Powered his way to the try line. I guess the Storm were thinking they got it won anyway. With only seconds remaining, Cleary scores, opts to skip the conversion, and for the final seconds it's a bit frantic and frenetic, but the ball ultimately dies in the hands of a Storm player, and Melbourne are crowned your 2020 champions. Like I said earlier, Clive Churchill medalist, Ryan Pappenhausen. There were definitely some exciting moments, but ultimately it was a game riddled with errors. I think Penrith, they made like 18 compared to Melbourne's 12. I ended up sticking around for the post-celebration or the post-game festivities just to see if Smith would announce his retirement. I saw on Twitter, I can't remember who it was that said it, but I kind of echo the same sentiments when he said he hoped that Cameron Smith would play another year just to spite all the haters. That would be funny to see. I don't know what it is about the culture here, but it seems like everyone just despises a winner. I, however, would encourage everyone else or whoever's watching this to give the man his flowers while he's still in the game. I mean, the Melbourne Storm in general, they've been fairly dominant for what feels like forever, and in my opinion, they deserve that respect. So where to from here? There's plenty of questions about both teams for next season, like can Penrith back up their regular season performance and possibly do one better? Can they break that streak? Super early days to try and predict these things, but you know, during the run they've had a lot of rubber the green, and a little bit of luck is definitely involved in those kind of runs. Unfortunately for the Panthers, they barely had any in the first half at least, but you can't dwell on that because they did make 18 errors. So yeah, it's a tough one to take. As for the Storm, they've got a couple players departing. There's still a huge question mark over Cameron Smith's playing future. Plenty of rumors floating around. I mean, I've heard the Gold Coast Titans were making a play for Cameron. You had Harry Grant a few weeks ago come out and say if Cameron Smith is still at the Storm, he'd be trying to find another club to play for. So yeah, some interesting stories heading into the new season. It makes for some pretty spicy off-season drama. I'll definitely keep an eye out for that. We'll definitely be getting some answers before the end of the year. But until then, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to run it straight at that like button. And if you're new around here, would like to see more rugby league related content or more content from me, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you later.
Rag the riches, so if it's by the back, you know that I'm finna pull up. All of this cash, I get it and split it and flip it and make sure I double it up. I ain't a bastard, making my pops taught me how to grind and how to run up my funds. I'm really peep out a bitch, like she talking about chips, all of these, hope be knowing what's up. Hey, my phone got a block,